So, next week we start Advent. It's the beginning of the Advent season. It's a big thing for us because we start with hope and faith next Sunday. And in order for us to really get the benefits of the Advent season, which we'll refresh ourselves on over the next 4 weeks, we need to really work on opening our hearts for any kind of transformation to actually occur. If we're going to go into the season with our old beliefs and our old attitude, nothing's going to actually change. So we need to be able to get into a place of opening our hearts and imagining what transformation could look like for us. But creating our path for enlightenment first requires us to understand that this is an inner journey we're going to take over the next 4 weeks. It's this place within us. It's this divine truth that we have, not our intellect. So we don't want to just listen to what our head tells us. We want to go into our heart. But if we're going to do that, we need to take an honest assessment of what our beliefs are and what might be preventing us from walking forward on any new path. This is one of the challenges we face. Everybody says, well, I want my life to be new, but nobody walks away from the old. And you can't do both at the same time. Our human tendency is to stay stuck between the past and the future. And most of that is because we resist taking time to understand how our experiences have created blockages for us. So the things that we've gone through in our life create these blockages that prevent us from stepping forward. And we've talked about this before. We tell the same stories. We tell ourselves the same stories. I can't this because of that. I've always this because of that. That's the rhetoric, but that doesn't have to be what we hold on to. And we've all faced obstacles in our lifetime, but oftentimes we're stuck. We're just stuck. We want things to move forward, but we're stuck. And there are different reasons for why we get stuck. Sometimes it's because we're paralyzed by our fears. Fear of what's happening, fear of the unknown. Sometimes it's the beliefs, this isn't the way my life was supposed to be. And sometimes it's the things we have no control over. What life starts to change, we have no control over it, and that starts to bog us down. And we become the hostages of our own thoughts. And that's where we have to really challenge ourselves. Are we really interested in this Advent season to change our ways? Do we really want to go into the new year with a different mindset, an open heart? Regardless of the reasons we find ourselves stuck, we oftentimes find that it's difficult to overcome obstacles. But if we really thought this through, we would know that every time we've ever faced anything and we've gotten past it, we did so somewhere along the line because we were enlightened. We felt something, we thought something, something quickly shifted in our life. And that enlightenment changed everything. And we grew and we were able to move forward. But the truth is that most of us have only sought enlightenment when life is difficult, when we're stuck. How many of us get up and seek enlightenment on a good day? No, not often. So we need to think about, why do we have to be stuck or in a place where life is difficult for us to want to be enlightened? Now, there's a perfect animated film I like to refer to when it comes to enlightenment. I don't know how many of you have ever seen The Croods, but I would tell you that from years back. It's a movie that I think does a great job of helping us understand what it's like to be paralyzed by fear and needing enlightenment. There's so many life lessons in that movie. And it's a story about the sole surviving caveman. And his name is Grug. And it's told, though, from the perspective of his daughter, Eep, who is convinced that her dad's got the wrong idea about life. And she is sure there is something better out there. So Greg is this really proud man, and he truly believes that the only reason his family is still alive today and surviving is because he followed traditional wisdom, the traditional wisdom of the caveman. And that included, first, fear anything outside the cave, and second, be afraid even of your own shadow. So Grug spends all his life in the dark, and he finds it difficult to step out in the light. Now, this wisdom had been passed along generation after generation. How many of us can say the same? What wisdom and what beliefs and what rules have you been operating by that have followed generation to generation to generation? Think about it. We all have them. But his daughter intuitively knows that there is far more to life than living in the dark. And she is determined to seek enlightenment for herself through divine truth. But the movie raises awareness on what causes us to be so fearful, starting with our own embedded beliefs. Now, I'm going to ask you to think just for a minute about all the rules and guidelines and beliefs you've put on yourself and your life. Just think about them for a minute. And how many times we follow those rules and beliefs blindly, actually subconsciously, not even realizing we're doing it. For example, let's start with appropriate behaviors. How many people were raised with what are appropriate behaviors? Come on. Okay. How many of you expect everyone else to behave like that? Yes? Okay. So when we see people behaving inappropriately in restaurants, not like our rules, and running through places, not like our rules, and interrupting adults, not like our rules. Okay, what happens to us? We start to look at these people and say, wow, they didn't get it. They didn't get the right directions. Same is true with proper eating, proper exercising. Relationships, the right way to have a relationship, there's only a right way. And people have to behave a certain way. Pursuing an education, a career, there are the rules, family rules. What's a good career? What's a bad career? Parenting. All kinds of personal perspectives of parenting. And oftentimes coming from people who aren't parents, which I find comical. Saving or spending money. How much money should you have in the bank by the time you're 50? There's rules about that. There are even rules and beliefs in families about the proper way to retire and what retirement should look like. And you can only retire when you reach overcome certain obstacles and reach certain targets. The list is endless, but these beliefs become like anchors in our life. And when we have these anchors holding us back, we cannot seek enlightenment. We cannot move forward. We're stuck. In addition to this message about belief systems, in the movie, it talks about the actual journey this family goes through by literally following the light. Because they're not accustomed to light. So all of a sudden they become obsessed with trying to understand light. Now, light has a million divine meanings for us spiritually. You see candles, right? At Christmas. It's about the light. It's about following the light. It's about opening our heart and being the light. Seeking light in situations where we want our prayers to be answered. And actually representing God's light within us, which should be our only goal in this lifetime. Being the light we were born to be. All religions teach the importance of creating paths for enlightenment. They all talk about the difference between intellect and intuition. But the most obvious message in this story is, for me, is that Grug operates from his ego and his intellect, and his daughter is totally intuitive. She feels that. She has this inner knowing that there's more to life than what she's living. The path to enlightenment is about illuminating our understanding about life and opening ourselves to new beliefs, new thoughts, new outcomes. And our goal should be to navigate this path with the fewest amount of obstacles as possible. And there are lots of ways we can do this. I'm going to give you a few today. So first is us learning to understand that enlightenment isn't about anything outside of us. It is only about what is within us. You don't need to climb to the mountaintop. You don't need to go on a retreat. Yeah, those things are beneficial. But those things don't matter. It's that voice, it's the silence, it's learning to understand we have to go within. And most of us are too busy to go within. It's always about what's outside of us and what we have to do. But enlightenment will only come forward when we connect to our divine truth. When we spend time in that place within us where we are connecting and rebuilding and refueling ourselves so we can be enlightened. And every single one of us has the answers within us already. We heard that from our panel group in the Course of Miracles. It's all within us. But we have to be able to get there. We have to make room for that to happen. But even though everyone has their own answers within them, we are always wanting them to get the answers on our time. We always want people to be enlightened the way we think they need to be enlightened. Why can't they get that? Why don't they understand that? Why can't they just do it this way? And their life would be so much better. But here's the truth. Regardless of how many times a human being talks to people, you can talk to 500 people and you will never be enlightened until you're ready. The light bulb goes off when the student is ready. So we aren't the judges and the jury. We don't get to decide when everybody's light bulb is supposed to go off. We just need to make room for that to happen. The second thing I want us to think about is making room for divine truth in the silence. In the movie, Greg does a lot of listening, but it is mostly through his fearful mind. No amount of enlightenment will occur if fear is present. We have to create space for wisdom to come forth, which means we're not thinking about our next steps and we're not trying to solve our problems. We are open to having the resolutions come forward. Now, those of us familiar with Unity know that Myrtle and Charles Fillmore, co-founders of Unity, talked a lot about the importance of silence in achieving enlightenment. And Myrtle often said, "Be still and know," which is what Jesus said. Be still and know. She explains that that we spend most of our time in the outer pleasures of life, and that those outer pleasures are like the moonlight, sometimes really beautiful, but not enough to help the power within us come forth. She goes on to say that the silence is like the sun. It is always shining. It brings forth the best that is within us, the image and likeness of God that is waiting to be brought into activity. Third, we need to be mindful in understanding that nothing in life is permanent. If you haven't learned that by now, you should. There is nothing we have, nothing that exists today that is permanent. People come and go in our lives. Circumstances change all the time. Our bank accounts change all the time. Our friends change. Sometimes our family changes, either by choice or because it grows. But there is nothing in life that is permanent. And it's one of the important messages in the movie. Our lives and experiences are in a perpetual state of change. If and when we feel stuck, we just need to sit with it long enough, examine our thoughts and beliefs about whatever it is we're stuck in, and open our hearts to allow transformation to occur. Number 4 is that we need to practice releasing our old beliefs that no longer serve us. Feeling stuck is nothing more than a perspective, but it's being held hostage by our own thinking. How can we continue to grow in life if we keep having the same beliefs? What would that lead to? Nothing's going to change. We're just going to keep getting older. But nothing will change in our life. And maybe we need to do like our computers do these periodic scans, of our hard drives and see whether or not we've got any room. Number 5, we have to open our hearts to allow ourselves to be led to new paths and allow new wisdom to come through. There's a guy named Robert Marshall, and he wrote a book called The Inner Core. And he explained that the possibilities available to us through opening our hearts are unlimited. He suggests that we concentrate on our heart so we can break through the realms of feeling and knowing that allow us to see far beyond the confines of our mental processes. He shares that whatever we're doing should be attempted through the heart, not through the head. The heart, he says, is an exciting ride to almost anywhere within the spiritual realm. And once we achieve a heightened awareness, we can begin to leave the past behind. So as we enter this Advent season, I'm going to challenge all of us to open our hearts, to let go of old beliefs, and to make room for new ones, so that we can move through this season growing. Let's review our takeaways for today. Creating our path for enlightenment requires 4 things from us. 1, to remember enlightenment is an inward journey. Seek to awaken divine truth, not intellect or knowledge. Number 2, recognize nothing is permanent. All circumstances and conditions are temporary and will change. Release beliefs that no longer serve you. Determine which beliefs are keeping you anchored. And trust your inner wisdom. Intuition is always available to light the way. And the affirmation I created for today is, I am creating a path for enlightenment. And let's add my to that. I am creating a path for my enlightenment. Let's say that again. I am creating a path for my enlightenment. And the quote I have for today is author unknown, but I loved it. It says the path to enlightenment often takes us to the darkest corners of our mind. And so let's take that in for a moment. So we pause to reflect upon the importance of following our inner guidance, the path to enlightenment, knowing that our divine truth is exactly that, ours. What is meant for us to do is not what is meant for everyone to do. And so we seek that inner wisdom and that guidance and open our hearts and trust the process as we begin the journey through Advent. And so it is. Amen.